Welcome back to your show. Yesterday in Grand Junction, the field to take on Governor Ritter next year grew by one. State Senate Minority Leader Josh Penry joined former Congressman Scott McInnis and evergreen businessman Dan Mays as Republican candidates for governor. Senator Penry joins us now live in the studio. Welcome back to your show.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me.
First question comes from Cheryl Doyle in Littleton. What makes your qualifications unique or stand out from the other candidates in your party and other candidates in general? I'm just tired of the same old song and dance by politicians.
Well, it's a good question, Adam, and it's one we hear a lot. I mean, I think there is a growing frustration with both political parties in this country. Obviously, what's happening in Washington, D.C. with the growing deficits, mounting debts. Obviously, you look back over the last decade at a Republican Party that lost its way, sort of squandered its moment. And I think there is a overriding desire to sort of turn the page and make a clean break. And that's the kind of campaign we're going to run. We're not going to sort of focus on the platitudes. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty business of talking about how we are going to govern, identify problems, and point in a real way towards solutions. So it's an exciting opportunity. We are a different type of candidacy, myself and family and campaign team, and we're excited to get rolling.
Let's jump right in. Okay. John Pushkin writes in via Twitter. I'd like to ask Senator Penry, how can states raise money without raising taxes? Magic? Everything he says is already cut to the bone.
Yeah, well, here's a plan. Let's get the economy back on its feet. When the economy is rolling, then the tax revenue issue takes care of itself. And unfortunately, with the current administration, many of the priorities and policies it's pushed, whether you're talking about the litany of taxes and fees, igniting old fights between unions and business, the oil and gas restrictions, the most restrictive in the nation, they've made a bad economic situation worse. I think our first priority, my first priority as governor, will be to get the state of Colorado's economy back on its feet, moms and dads working again, and then the revenue situation will take care of itself.
Let me ask you, Jack Wiley just writes in, he's a student at Metro State. How do you propose we solve the funding problem for our colleges and universities in Colorado?
Well, this is one of the areas where historically Republicans in the state of Colorado haven't been very good. I mean, access to an affordable higher education for young men and women who would strive for it is critical, and Republicans haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. I'm going to. The way you get down and you solve problems within a budget is to make things a priority. I mean, I think one of the indictments of the current administration, the current legislatures, we have spread ourselves so thin. We've expanded programs and spending in so many areas, 44 new 100 state employees across state government in the last 3 years, that we've really lost focus on what matters: education, college, infrastructure, public safety. And what I'm going to do if I'm governor is really prioritize those things, and access to an affordable higher education will certainly be a priority for me.
Michael McDaniel writes in saying, what's going on in Colorado? I don't understand how the state is broke when every single thing to tax has been recently. I guess my question is, what in the heck's going on around here?
Yeah, well, I hear that question a lot. I mean, it's sort of a fundamental unwillingness on the part of those who are in power now to make tough choices. Every family, every business in this country, and certainly in this state, are figuring out how to slog through these really difficult economic times. Meanwhile, in Denver, it's business as usual. Rather than going in and reducing spending, lots of states are doing that, but Colorado isn't. We're increasing taxes and fees. Folks are paying this new registration fee. It's hitting people hard. Senior citizens lost their homestead exemption. I mean, your caller's frustration is exactly right, and that's not a partisan thing. I mean, people are having a hard time weathering this storm, and government is making it worse with all these taxes and fees. I'm not an economist, but I know you don't raise taxes in a recession, and that's happening too often in Colorado.
We should be clear that you can't raise taxes without a vote of the people. You're using tax and fee kind of.
Well, if you look, for example, getting rid of the senior homestead exemption, that's a $90 million tax increase effectively on senior citizens. The vendor fee that small businesses pay on sales taxes, that's a $30 million increase in the taxes they would pay. So if you look at what's happened, the current administration, the Democrats in the legislature have poked a lot of holes in Tabor through fees and through creative classification of taxes. The net effect is taxes and fees have gone up on families and businesses in a dramatic way.
Let's talk transportation. Harry Doby from Denver writing in saying, I just wrote in this morning, I'd like to know what your plans are for funding our state's transportation needs, given the estimates that we need at least $1 billion in critical repairs alone.
Well, it's a big issue, and it goes to the priority conversation that we just had a second ago. I mean, infrastructure is one of those core functions of government. It's something that government should do: safe roads, safe bridges. It'll be a priority. If you look back over the span of the last 25 or 30 years, Colorado increasingly has taken the taxes that were originally created for transportation, taken them out of transportation and put them into the general fund to fund other programs. I think the first thing we need to do is back out some of those taxes and fees that have been rated and prioritize them where they're supposed to be spent, which is on roads and bridges. We saw this enormous car fee increase this year. We also passed legislation that amounts to the largest cut to transportation funding in the history of the state. So in so many instances, it's sort of the same old, same old. Government is taking money from one area and spending it on another. I think we need to really focus those dollars where they were intended, and that's infrastructure needs.
You talked about restrictions in the oil and gas industry, and certainly this governor has promoted renewable energy, right. I think, without maybe even equal in this country as far as governors go. Ken Borrego wants to know, what's your stand on renewable energy?
Well, I've actually supported many of Governor Ritter's policies on renewable energy. We need more wind, we need more solar, we need more geothermal. He's right on that. Where he has been desperately wrong is in restricting access to conventional sources of energy, and natural gas is at the front of the list. I thought Michael Bennett's comments were exactly spot on about the importance and what a tremendous asset we have in Colorado in significant natural gas reserves. The problem is that new drilling in Colorado is in free fall, in large part, in substantial part, because of these new oil and gas restrictions. There are 90% fewer permits to drill in Colorado this year at this time as compared to last year at this time. And with that, a lot of jobs lost as well. And that's something a new governor can fix. Come in and make sure that there's a better balance. Yes, we want to protect public health and environment and make sure that those nuisance issues are dealt with, but we need more jobs and we need more energy, and that's something I'm going to push for.
Senator Josh Penry, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I'm sure we're going to have this conversation a lot more as the campaign goes along.
I look forward to it, Adam. Thanks for having me.
We will be right back.